And we welcome you to the extra part of Castlevania Circle of the Moon, and I'm at my file where I've got Fireball unlocked, so we're just gonna put that in now. And I am gonna edit out, it is gonna retell the introduction, so I'll just edit that out. Okay, well now that that's set, you have pretty much, or it starts out pretty much the same, except for one little thing. You have altered stats, where you have really jacked up intelligence and really jacked up magic. But then your physical attributes are what suffer the most. As you can see, I didn't really do that much damage. But the fun part about Magician mode is you get all the cards right out of the gates, so it does help you out with anything you need in order to just get through this game, because you are very vulnerable early on. So that is something that you do have to remember when you're playing on Magician mode. And it is really easy to get yourself killed early on. And the biggest thing you do have to worry about is just getting hit too much. Which, of course, because your defense is not that good. It is also worth it to... Sorry. It is worth it to have... Let's see, I think it was Golem and the Venus up early, just so you can jack up your defense. And unfortunately, it doesn't increase your defense all that much with the... with the amount of map I have covered. And you're not going to catch me off guard. But yeah, that is just Magician mode in a nutshell. And the Holy Sword is definitely one useful weapon early on that you can just do a ton of damage with early on. And it also does pay to raise your experience early by using Pluto and Mandragora. Just so you can get some things done with on that one. And it does also pay to be over-leveled early on because, like I said before, that's just when you're at the most danger. But yeah, I'll go to the next mode, and that's going to be Fighter mode, so I'll just see you for that one. So now I booted up a different file that I had, and we can unlock Fighter mode by picking Gradius. And the way you do that is you have to beat Magician mode, which is kind of a bummer, but at the same time it's one of those things that has to be done. You do get them, or you do get the different types one at a time. So that is just something to know when you're trying to progress through all the modes in this game. But the good news about Fighter type is he has really jacked up offensive and defensive stats. And you cannot get any cards at any time in this mode. But at the same time, you're so strong you don't really need them anyway. So I'll just show off a little bit about how easy Dracula is in this mode. Alright, let's get to it. Dracula has the same pattern as before, but as you can see I'm doing a lot more damage to him compared to that 75 I was doing in the previous mode. So yeah, that was Form 1. I'm not going to show off the whole Dracula fight, I just wanted to show off how overpowered Nathan is in this mode. So I will see you next for Shooter mode. So to unlock Shooter mode, you do have to beat the game as Fighter, which is definitely a lot easier than as Magician, at least in my opinion. And then you have to enter Crossbow as the name. So as you can predict with Shooter mode, Crossbow is all about abusing the hell out of your sub-weapons. You do get a huge amount of hearts, and you also do get a really big increase in just the amount of hearts that you have, and also the amount of damage that these sub-weapons do. So it's really important that you get the boomerang as fast as you can, just like I did in my LP with Vampire Killer. And just abuse the hell out of it, because frankly, this mode is actually the toughest one in my opinion. Thief mode is actually the hardest, technically, but I just find Crossbow to be tougher because At least with Thief Mode, your luck is so high you have so many items that can make up for it. But then at the same time, yeah, that's just the way you want to deal with things in this mode. Especially because you don't really get much defense and your physical attributes really aren't all that strong either. So either way, not really one you want to, you know, have a hard time with. Just not one you want to screw around with too much. So I will see you next for Thief Mode. And finally, to unlock Thief Mode, you would have to beat the game as Shooter, and then enter Dagger as your name. And basically, in a nutshell, all your stats are terrible, except for luck, which is really jacked up. So, the name of the game for this one is just get a lot of items and rely on it as much as you can. Because it is going to be a lot harder just to go through everything. You're so weak, it's so hard to kill stuff. And also, let's see, also you do want to use stats to either jack up your offense, and then just use a bunch of mind restores. I mean, that's just normally the way I would go about doing this. But what I am going to do is I am going to show off me beating Dracula and then the final ending in the game. I mean, it's nothing special, it's more or less just a congratulations, you beat all the modes ending. But yeah, I mean, I'll probably just commentate over it, post commentary, and then just give some more thoughts on how they handled this stuff. So I'll just see you for that. So now that we're here fighting Dracula, the biggest thing you do have to worry about are those thunder bats that Dracula shoots. And also I am using the Thunderbird and Venus card combination, just so I can get some offense going here. And that's really the biggest thing when it comes to playing on Thief Mode, is that you do have to make it as sort of an endurance test, so you really have to avoid stuff really well. And I mean, that does go without saying when you're playing on this mode compared to the other modes, but at the same time, it is something that you should know. Except when he uses those stupid thunder bats. But I am doing this post-commentary, and I'm just going to use the time to give my thoughts on the overall ways they expanded gameplay. And I do like the extra modes. I mean, I specifically do like Magician mode and Thief mode. And I also did like Fighter mode, but then again, I didn't really feel like Shooter mode was that necessary. What I would have liked instead is, they did make Hugh a playable character in the demo, as I've said before. But I honestly would have liked to have seen the story from Hugh's point of view. Kinda like they did with Vile and Mega Man Maverick Hunter X. Like how they, said, like, what if he was the one going after the Mavericks that went with Sigma? And then they, like, have a completely different story with him compared to the different story with X. And then it ends with X and Zero killing him, spoiler alert. And then Sigma talking to him at the end, and then Vile just dies. Which they do a really good job with that story, because you actually kind of feel bad for Vile. I mean, he beats X and Zero, but then dies anyway. And then, that actually would have been nice to make Hugh a tragic character in that sense, but then again, Hugh doesn't die, so, I mean, I guess that would have been warranted to, you know, see, like, how he, I don't know, I guess how he disintegrates into, or degenerates into this power-mad and glory-mad person that Dracula and Carmilla formed him into. And I mean, that is something that would have made the game a little bit more interesting, but then again, I am not going to knock this game for not doing that. I mean, it's just something that I thought would have been a little bit more interesting. But then again, they did a pretty good job with this game, considering it is a launch title for the GBA, so I don't really know if they had enough in the gameplay to make two playable characters. I mean, if they had enough of the technology mastered by then, or if they had enough of the, I guess, hardware figured out. I mean, that's just one of the problems when you're dealing with a launch title. I mean, I don't really know how they pulled it off, or the Super Nintendo pulled it off with having such great launch titles like Super Mario World, Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past, or Super Castlevania 4. But at least those were pretty simple games that they could, or that they could use, and then just make pretty simple stories out of them and pretty simple gameplay modes, but they were all really good, even if they were very simple, and that is one thing about the genius of the Super Nintendo, to be honest with you. So let's see, I'm just wrapping up the first form of, or I guess the first part of the second form of Dracula. And this is where it starts getting really tricky, and I'm going to be switching a lot just because that charge attack that Dracula does can kill you in one hit if you're not careful. Like, I've seen it do 600, 700 damage in Thief mode, and yeah, that is something that you do have to be aware of, and this is not a mode that you can play recklessly unless you have a ton of items that you just want to use over and over again. And see, here I'm trying to use the same strategy I used in my LP. I mean, in my original LP of Vampire Killer mode. But then later on, I decided to change it to using summons instead, just because I feel like that's more practical. And honestly, I could have done that with, I mean, in the first mode, but I just decided to stick with regular attacks. Well, not really regular attacks, but you get the idea. I mean, just attacks similar to the ones that they were using. But yeah, I mean, that's just pretty much this battle in a nutshell. You do really have to keep your wits about you, and you really have to stay sharp when it comes to this mode, because you have such a small margin for error. And that does go without saying. But considering the amount of items that you get in this game, you do have to rely on items a lot, as I've said before. And that's one of the reasons why I consider shooter mode harder than thief mode, is that you do have, at least you have magic to work with on thief mode, because your luck's so jacked up you're going to get all the best cards. And then, also because your luck's so jacked up you're going to get a lot of items. So you do have those things working for you in thief mode that you don't have working for you in shooter mode. And then I'm just trying to figure out where to go here. I think right here is the point where I start switching to summons. But then again, don't quote me on that one. Okay, I guess not. Yeah, this is why I decided to do it post-commentary, just because I didn't feel like trying to talk over this stuff and give my thoughts on a game and trying to articulate that stuff while trying to avoid everything that's flying at me at the same time. Just didn't think that would have made for very good, or for a very good product. But, I mean, that's just my opinion, and then again, that's what happens when you're a perfectionist. You just always find something to nitpick about your Let's Plays. Not that that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it can be a bad thing and it can be a good thing. So let's see, I think, yeah, this is where I start switching to Thunderbird summons. And if you're playing on Magician, you're going to abuse the hell out of this thing. And that does go without saying, just because that's one of the things I do really like about the extra modes, is that they force you to adapt to different circumstances. Like when you're on Magician mode, you just want to abuse the hell out of summons and those kind of things, and then when you're on shooter mode, you of course have to abuse the hell out of sub-weapons. Although I do consider fighter mode my favorite one, just because you, even though you don't get any magic, you don't really need it just because you're so strong. And I think I was trying to get another shot in, but I think the reason I didn't use my summon there was because I didn't want him to change back and then hit me and then probably kill me. So yeah, I mean, this is my overall strategy when it comes to this stuff. So for what's going to be up next is I'm going to get my Halloween Let's Play going. And then the people at the Let's Play corner actually already know what it is, but let's see, might as well give it away now. I am going to be playing Uninvited for the NES. It is part of the ICOM trilogy with Deja Vu and Shadowgate. And I think it was actually the first game, but don't quote me on that one. I mean, I'll probably talk more about it when I end up actually playing the game instead of you know, finishing off Castlevania Circle of the Moon. Let's see, and yeah, I think I should be finishing them off pretty soon. I'm just going to display the ending and then just the... I mean, instead of going through the credits, I just decided to display the ending. So, let's see, you just get your fade and then you get your congratulations message. But yeah, that is going to be it for Castlevania Circle of the Moon, so thank you very much for watching, and I will see you soon at the next one.